However, the founders knew they weren't perfect. And the amendment process is the only way that you can change this document. And that's an important point, because if the document can be changed, then yes, it is a living document. It can be adjusted, it can be altered. All of those things can happen. But I think they put it very importantly, only two people can do that. Only two people can amend the Constitution. Two groups of people. The Congress or the states are able to amend the Constitution. And you need a significant amount of people. You need 3/4 of the states and 3/4 of the Congress in order to be able to pass an amendment. The reason for that is because if you allow amendments to be efficient and simple, then we would have a document bigger than we can handle, and it wouldn't be done in 45 minutes, which we're really, really getting close to right now. Article 6 is dealing with the debts. The people in the United States were willing to take the debt of the Confederacy. We're happy to do that because it was our war, and so we should take that debt. We took all of those things. There were certain ordinances that had to happen, and then Article 7 is the ratification. Now we're going to fly through the amendments. The ratification, just so you know, is the actual voting on of the states to accept this Constitution. Many states wouldn't do it without the Bill of Rights. So we have the First Amendment. There's no such thing as separation of church and state. I want you all to know that.
We know that.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So actually there's a separation of state and church, which is different. The Congress can't have any power over a church, and whenever somebody in the local community tells you that there is a separation of church and state, say that applies to the federal government. Let me know when you're running for office. I'll be sure to vote against you. But any community doesn't have that same responsibility. Governments can have power over religious organizations, which is to be noted because you want to either protect or prohibit religions in your local community that you may not want to prohibit on a national level. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom to assemble to petition the government for redress of grievances. You're allowed to do all those things. The Second Amendment is the right to protect yourself. You're allowed to defend yourself, period. No exceptions. Soldiers can't be quartered in your homes unless you say it's okay to have a soldier in your house. That's Amendment number 3. I'm going to run through 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The Amendment number 4 is personal privacy. You're safe as a person. You're safe in your papers. No one can have access to your documents if you don't want them to. But you also do a lot of transactions, and people may find out about you if you're very open about it, which is fine. There's some things people can know that you buy $6 worth of toilet paper at the grocery store on your receipt. That's no big deal. Fair compensation for landowners when government is requiring use of your land. The Fifth Amendment is no double jeopardy law. If you have been tried of a crime and you were found not guilty, you can't be tried for that crime again. Your Amendment number 6 is a speedy trial, and you get to face your witnesses, just so you can make sure that they're not lying to you. Trial by jury for all civil cases, Amendment number 7. No cruel and unusual punishment. Again, that is subjective, but if you saw the punishment that they were talking about back then, it would be very unique to what we have now. Amendment number 9 is a vital one. It's all about the people. The people keep their rights. None of the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Why are the people retaining rights? Because we originally have them. No rights are given to government except by people. A government doesn't exist without people. So we retain rights because we originally had them. I want you to remember that. Anytime a police officer stops you, anytime anything happens, you have the rights first, and you gave part of those rights to a government. The 10th Amendment, one of my favorites. They said Article 1, Section 8, this is what Congress can do. Article 1, Section 9, what Congress can't do. And just in case we missed anything, we put this amendment in place. It says the powers that the Constitution doesn't talk about in the document are reserved for the states and the people, not the federal government. This gives the states and the people more power than the federal government in many areas of life. This is what I'm talking about when I, in the introduction, said we're against a lot of things today as constitutionalists, as people that believe this document, but we're not for a lot of things. And it's kind of like, you know, if you know the story of the Garden of Eden, there was only one tree that they weren't allowed to eat of, but they could eat of all the other trees. But they lost sight of that, so they focused on the one thing they couldn't eat off of, and they focused on it so much that they fell into it. So don't take your focus off of what we're against, but also remember what we're for and what we're allowed to do, and make sure that we're doing it. Amendment number 11 limits the judicial branch. Amendment number 12 is choosing of the president and vice president. You remember I said that originally the president had the highest votes, the vice president had the next highest votes. If that happened, I think we would eliminate party politics in the United States as we know it. The 13th Amendment, this is an amendment that where the founders made a mistake. They shouldn't have had certain laws in our Constitution. We didn't talk about it in there, but there was a part in there that allowed for people to be owned, and they missed it. They didn't maintain individual freedom. It shows that they're fallible, and I think that's important. We're just as fallible as they are. They gave us a good foundation, but we can change it. We did change it. Slavery was abolished. What took so long? Did we need a war? That's a question I want you to write. Did we need a war? There were many countries that did not have a civil war for slavery. The country paid for all the slaves, bought them, and then released them. So I want you to ask that question. And then freedom for all individuals is the hallmark of respect for human dignity. Without freedom, are we really individuals? And that's a great question. Amendment 14 states the specific rights for citizens that the United States has. So it tells you what is a citizen and how a citizen is determined. It immediately discusses representation in government. That's a very important point, because as soon as you become a citizen, you get represented. Not based on your age, not based on your IQ, not based on your money, not based on your job. You get a representative just because you're a citizen of the United States, and that's not like any other country in a real sense. Amendment 15, people of any race have the right to vote. Choosing leaders is a mark for a free society and a free individual. And actually, I shouldn't have said leaders. You know, we abolished slavery, but the one group that is always a slave to us are the people that we vote to office. If they don't do what we say, then they no longer have the power to do what we want. The 16th Amendment, taxes on incomes from whatever sources derived. I have a few questions about this. What does the Supreme Court say about this amendment? There's an interesting case in 1920 that I won't detail here. I don't want to bias anyone, but it's interesting. There's no execution clause. Most of the amendments have a way to execute them, how to accomplish them. This one doesn't. So it leaves me with a lot of questions, and it leaves a lot of people with a lot of questions. Some people, even as recent as 2006, say that our tax code is voluntary. And I challenge anyone not to pay it. I pay my taxes, and you'll voluntarily go into prison. But the other question I have is, what else happened in 1913? There was the Federal Reserve and the next amendment, the 17th Amendment. The Federal Reserve is probably the most important question to have next to the 16th Amendment, and you can research why. 17th Amendment, senators were no longer elected by states. The state legislature lost that power, and I asked the question, is this better for the people? If this is better for the people, what's the original purpose of two houses? Why do we need the Senate then in the first place? And can the House do the job of the Senate, since everybody is voting on everybody? And that's a question to ask ourselves. There's a lot of constitutional scholars that believe that the states lost a lot of power. They represent people, and they were to hold the federal government accountable, especially in those areas of commerce. If you'll remember, the Senate has to confirm any treaty signed by the president. That's in the regulations of the senators. They get to confirm the treaties. Well, why is that? Because they were representatives of the states, and the states would have commerce, and so the Senate was confirming treaties of commerce and communication and relationship, because they were executing that